In this video, I'm going to show you how to take everything I've made so far and apply inverse kinematics to it using a really handy plugin for After Effects. As you can see, this puppet here is actually changed from the puppet that we've been working with. In the production I'm working on with this character, a number of scenes got cut where the character was facing forward. Now, most of the time the character is running back and forth or looking at particular objects. There's very few times that he's actually facing the camera. So I decided that at points where he's facing the camera, having his body turned slightly away from the view wasn't a problem, and it's easy enough now with the controls that I built earlier to actually rotate his face to face the camera. So what I did is I went back in and I adjusted his body so that I have a 3/4 body instead of a front-on body. It doesn't change a lot other than some of the objects and some of the layers. So initially when his pants were just one layer, they're actually now a couple of layers. I have a back and a front version of his pants, so if we just turn them on, there's the front version there. And these pants are rigged up just like his front pants were. Same code, same everything, just a slightly different drawing. Actually, there's a couple of drawings. So if we go in here, there's the top part for his belt. There's this part, which is the outer leg, which I can't move around because it's pinned down. And then there's the crotch area. And then for the pants on the back, there's the back leg. And I've split it up into two parts. So now when we look at the character together, there he is. And the other thing I did is I slightly redrew the knees a little bit. So I've got these pants as compositions. Nothing major is different about them. The puppet tool is driving the distortions on these pants, so it's very much exactly the same as the other pair of pants, except it's an embedded composition, and I've duplicated it to make a front composition and a back composition. Okay, so the big step that all of this has been leading up to is enabling inverse kinematics. So I have this thing, the Duik tool set. This you can download for free or with donation from the website here. On the website, they actually show you how to install it. The way to call it up is just to go into Window, Duik JSX once you've installed it. So I'm just going to enable this here, and then the plugin is enabled. Before I really get started doing the inverse kinematics, I just want to double check and make sure that all my major joints, my null objects, are visible and parented properly. It doesn't matter if they're not, you can parent them again later, but it's nice to have it out of the way now. So I really just want to make sure that my left and right leg are parented properly. So I want to make sure that hip leg left is parented to the pelvis left, which it is, and hip leg right is parented to pelvis right, which it is. And I want to make sure that the arms are parented as well. So shoulder arm is parented to torso, and shoulder arm should be parented to torso also. So I just want to make sure these are all rigged up so that once I get the character moving, I'm not going to be leaving any parts behind. Again, if you do, it's not a huge deal. You can just do it after the fact. So I'm just going to enable hiding here. And as you'll see, I've got all the major elements for this character pulled up. These are all the pieces that we're going to need to make the character move. All the extra pieces, these other null objects, are just used for distortions and various other things that make the character who he is, but they're not required for his movement. So I don't need to worry about any of the cloth stuff that I did or any of the null objects on his shorts or anything like that, because that's all being driven by these objects here. Okay, so let's get started. This is the fun part. So the first thing you need to do is you need to create your controllers. These controllers will be essentially the handles that you use to pull the limbs around and guide them. So I'm going to click on right here, I'm going to click controller, and this will create a controller object. So as you can see, it creates a C_wrist left because we had wrist selected, and the C is Duik Tools automatically makes its own null object, which will now be the controller for that layer. I'm just going to scale it up because I want them bigger than my null objects so that they're easier to grab. And I'm going to select the other wrist, create a new controller, scale that up to 200, select the ankle, controller, scale that up, 200, select the other ankle, click controller, again, scale it up 200, and Duik Tools is taking care of all the naming conventions for me. I'm going to select the neck. I'm going to make a new controller, and I'm going to scale that up to 200. And then I'm going to select the pelvis, and I'm going to create another controller for the pelvis, and again scale that up 200. And then I'm going to duplicate the pelvis, and I'm going to make one called the torso, C torso, and I'll scale that one up to 300. This is not illustrated in the online tutorials for Duik tools. It's just something I've been trying. And I'm going to do another one called C center, and that one I'm going to be scaled to 400. And then the last one I'm going to make is the master. It's controller master, controller underscore master. And this will be the one that you can pull the whole character around with. We have all the controls ready. All the controls are up. So now let's start creating IK chains. So let's minimize all these. Don't need all these open. Okay. Actually, I'm going to reorder these really quickly too. I'm going to put the master down at the bottom. I'm going to pull the wrist left and right up. Center, torso, and pelvis is fine. I'm going to put the neck up at the top, and the ankle left and right at the bottom. Perfect. Right above the master. Okay, so let's start this. So the way that the Duik tools creates IK chains, these are 3-joint IK chains, is you start with the end of the chain and then you move your way to the base of the chain. So wrist to elbow, tip of the tail to the butt. That's how it works. Wrist, and then I control click elbow and control click shoulder. And then the last thing I need to select is the actual null object, the controller object. Wrist right. There it is. I'm going to move that over here actually. Okay, so now I'm going to, let's do that again. Alright, so let's select the wrist, control select the elbow, control select the shoulder, and then control select the wrist right controller, and then press IK creation. So it didn't look like anything happened, but actually it did. As you can see, the arm is bending. It looks like my hand isn't parented to the wrist properly. But that's actually okay, because I want to parent the hand to wrist right goal. Let me show you what happens if it's parented to the original wrist null object. As you can see, the hand is reorientating itself based on the orientation of the forearm. If I parent the hand to the wrist goal, the hand actually maintains its own orientation. Let's do the other arm. I'm going to do the left arm now. And again, hand left is not parented to anything. I'll parent it to the wrist left for now. So I'm going to start wrist, elbow, shoulder, control clicking each one as I go, and then wrist left controller, IK creation, and there we are. Let's parent that hand to the goal instead of the actual wrist, and there we go. Okay, perfect. Here, let's do this leg, left leg, ankle, knee, and hip. Again, selecting the end of the chain, going to the base. The base is not the point that contacts the ground. The base is the pivot from which the limb rotates from, so the hips in this case. Alright, and let's select the left ankle controller, IK creation. Let's have a look and see how that works. Oh, you may notice now that the knee is actually bending backwards. In order to fix this, I need to pull up my effects control here. And I'm going to just put that over here with this. Okay, so there's this checkbox here, and this is the orientation. I can click this, and it will actually change the way that the inverse kinematics is solved. If I put it, it actually flips the rotation of the joint. This is a keyframeable effect, so I can actually break the joint if I want. It's really great for arms that might be changing direction. Okay, so let's do the other leg here. The right leg, ankle, control knee, control hip, and let's control click that controller. Alright, IK creation, and again it looks like it flipped that knee backwards. Yes, it did. Let's put this back. And the other thing is, let's connect these shoes. Let's parent them to the ankle goal and not the ankle, as they are right now, ankle goal. So Duik Tools creates these goal objects, which is really useful. You'll see why they're especially useful with the legs. Alright, there, the pants are working. Everybody's working. Okay, great. Alright, so the next step here is actually now that that's created, I need to create the chain for the upper body. So let's try the neck, the torso, and then make the controller here the neck. And this is just a 2-point inverse kinematic chain. So the head's gone and done something weird, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I just want to see how it's working with the back. So that gives me a nice back and forth rotation with the back here, which is exactly what I want. The only thing it's doing, which is a little strange, is the head is going all over the place. Alright, so that head's moving around a little weird right now, but I'm not going to worry about that. The first thing I need to do, I need to create the relationship between all these objects. So I'm going to parent both the wrist controllers to the neck. So that means whenever the neck moves around, the ankle left and right follow the master. The neck here follows the torso. So if this torso controller rotates, the neck goes with it. So you can see that gives me a nice bend there. Torso is going to parent to center, and pelvis will parent to center. Okay, and then I'm going to parent the pelvis to the pelvis controller. So I've got this pelvis here. I'm going to parent it to the pelvis controller. So center is neck should be parented to torso. The torso here should be parented to the torso as well, because again, I want that torso to follow this controller. So if this controller bends, the upper torso bends. If this controller pulls, the middle of the torso pulls back and forth. Okay? So, and then if I pull the center around, everybody comes with it. Those shorts aren't responding properly at the moment, but they will. Okay? So now, if I pull this center around, let's go full screen. If I pull this center around, everybody goes with this center. But if I want to do a more specific rotation, let's say with the pelvis, I can rotate the hips. Or with the torso, I can rotate the upper body, so I get a nice, he can bend down and pick something up. Or with this shoulder controller here, I can bend the middle of his body. Now the last thing I want to fix is what's happening with his head. It's flipping all over the place. And that's because whenever I move that neck controller in the y-axis, it's flipping his head. So I'm moving it up one, look at that head flips down, and then move it this way, it flips the other way. I want it, I don't like what it's doing, so I'm going to take this neck control. Alright, and I'm going to change some things here. I'm going to parent the head to this neck right here. So when this neck rotates, his head goes with it. I'm going to change the null object here. And this is a nice thing about this tool, is I can change things after the fact, you know, if they're not quite working the way I want them to. And I don't like what's happening to this head. It's rotating at this really weird angle. So I'm going to actually parent this neck to the torso controller. I'm going to put this at 0. Now let's see what happens there. See if I can, there we go. It's more what I want. I want that head independent of this weird neck controller that's flipping around. The other thing I can do is I can actually create a neck IK goal. And if I create a neck goal, what will happen is that neck will actually stay orientated upwards instead of following the orientation of the body, which the neck has more of a tendency to do than the hands because it's not a free-floating object as much as the hands. But let's just do it anyway for the sake of demonstration. So I'm going to click on IK goal here, and then I'm going to parent the head to the IK goal neck. Now what you're going to see here is the head and the neck now try to stay upright. So no matter where the body's going, the head tries to stay upright. It can be a little weird, but at the same time can be really helpful so that you're not always reverse animating the head. It's really up to you. I like to work with the head not being attached to a goal. Alright, there we go. The whole character is rigged up and moving around. All the pieces seem to be moving well. There are the feet. Let's check this foot here. It's moving right. The legs are moving. The pants are moving. There we go. Check these shoulders. I can get them into some pretty extreme positions here. This is if I rotate the whole center, or I can rotate just the torso. There we go. Or the pelvis. So there's the pelvis rotating there. So if I want, I can rotate. I can also move them individually of each other. I can rotate this torso down so you can bend down to pick something up. Let's move this even more. There we go. So there you go. And if I rotate these here, the hands move based on the rotations of these controllers, and the legs do the same thing. If I rotate the feet using those controllers, and there you go. You have a fully articulated character. Awesome. Alright, cool. Well, and this is the master. So, oh wait. One thing I don't think we look at is the master. Everything, the center, everything has to eventually parent back to the master somehow. So make sure that if you have any objects that aren't parented to something, that they parent back to the master. Because the master is what you're going to use to actually, if you want to make your character walk or run or jump or something, or do anything, or move your puppet around somewhere into a different space, you can do that just by dragging this master around and not worry about positioning the individual pins. So there we go, that's the character. So in the next video I'm going to show you how to make some interactive hands, and I'll show you how to do some interactive hands and some feet, so that we have multiple feet that can be worked with the puppet. Awesome.